Welcome to Feeling Asian, a podcast where two Asians talk about their feelings. I'm Young Mi Mayer.
And I'm Brian Park. And Young Mi, I'm so freaking excited for our guest this week.
I'm so excited. This is like, we have a lot of creatives on the podcast, and I'm jealous of all their lives, but it's this. I haven't told you this, Brian, but I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's everybody, but like when I was in high school, this person, our guest that we're going to introduce shortly, their job was like my dream job. So I'm so excited. I want to know everything about it.
Let's unpack that when we have them on the pod. But yeah, I mean, listeners, you're in for a real treat. I'm just going to say, in terms of visual inspiration, our guest is single-handedly providing that in spades. And without further ado, listeners, your guest this week is an incredibly talented filmmaker. Please give your ears to Andrew Thomas Huang.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. It's been an honor to join you, and I'm a huge fan of the podcast, so it's great to speak with you.
Man, every time somebody says that, I'm blown away. I'm like, I can't believe you listen to our podcast.
Yeah, I was literally
so
crying
honored
when I was listening to Kihei Kwan's interview. It was so good.
Yeah.
Aww.
Yeah, that one was great. What an amazing human being.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah.
Such an impact.
Right?
So
he had huge impact on my life. I don't think
Huge
he
impact.
knows how big of an impact he had on all our lives, right?
Yeah, massively.
But he was so real. That's what I loved about him.
So real.
Yeah.
He's so real, and so down to earth and able to just be real about his emotions. Because I feel like hot off of like a huge movie like Everything Ever All at Once, and you're doing press tours, you could just be like a robot and just give these like packaged responses. But Ki was just so real with us, and I really appreciated it because I don't know. I feel like as someone who's in the thick of it as well, a conversation like that really provided a lot of solace and comfort and inspiration because this shit is hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we're also so excited that you've joined us. This is like also next level. I'm just like so blown away. I know that this is like me and Brian have to work on this, but I'm always just blown away that people give us the time of day. I'm like, are you sure you want to be on the podcast? Thank you so much.
This is making you feel very comfortable and confident in your decision to be on the pod, right, Andrew?
I get it.
Yes.
The Asian imposter syndrome. You gotta do away with it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but since you listen, I'm sure you're familiar with the format of the pod. Up top, we like to ask each other how we're feeling. So, Young Mi, how are you feeling?
Actually, I wasn't going to talk about this, but Andrew just said Asian imposter syndrome, and I just tweeted, like, this might be a little hate. You know what? Whatever. I don't give a shit anymore. I'm going to be a little bit of a hater today. I feel like I'm very PC, when it comes to other people on this podcast. Today, I'm going to be a fucking hater.
All right, let it out. Be a fucking hater.
And of course, it's like it has something to do with Twitter because I'm so fucking addicted, like a loser. Like, that's my vice. The website Twitter, like, I have a problem. I gotta go to rehab. So there's this thing that happened on Twitter. Andrew, are you on Twitter at all? Or?
I am on Twitter, yes.
Yes. Okay, one of us.
Yes.
So I don't know if you saw this, but Whitney Cummings posted this joke, and it's just so bad. It's not even like, she starts off by saying, well, I guess I'm about to get canceled. Ugh. And then she's like, did you just see what I was doing? She's doing that on stage. She's like, you guys are Kelly, am I right? It's like, it's so was like bonkers, like 1930s, like tap dancing act. And she makes it like a R. Kelly joke. But she's like, obviously the audience is full of her fans. So she rehearsed the joke, anticipating them to go, boo. But she says R. Kelly, and she says, what are you, too woke? And of course, the audience is anti-woke. So they're like, start clapping and going, woo, like that. Like, we hate woke people, right? And then she keeps going with the bit that she's arguing with the audience, but they're going, yeah, we hate the woke left mob sort of vibe, right?
Right.
It's so awkward and cringy. And then she says this R. Kelly joke, and literally everyone stops laughing because it's so like just not funny.
Hmm.
And she's just getting like torn to shreds on Twitter.
I think I saw this. Like the entire joke is just she's an R. Kelly apologist because the music's good.
But the truth is, it's not even that offensive. Like, you can say the joke, I don't like
Sure.
R. Kelly, but he has some bops. I don't
Sure.
think anyone would be that offended by, like, I think the premise is that if a R. Kelly song comes on the radio, you're gonna be like, oh, this is bad, but then you're kind of listening to it. Like, that's the premise.
Right.
And that's honestly, I feel like that too. I'd be like, oh, I shouldn't listen to this, but this is a good
Yeah.
song. No one's
when
offended
I'm
by
at
that.
Whole Foods and Michael Jackson's playing, I'm fucking twerking and shaking my ass a little bit while I'm picking peaches.
Wait, Michael Jackson's canceled? Did I miss this? I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. He died, and then we were like, well, never mind. So the joke doesn't work because she sets it up like people are going to argue with her. People love it because they hate woke people. And then she keeps arguing with like an imaginary audience.
Right.
And then on top of that, the joke is actually not funny.
Mm.
And so the reason I remember, I like when Andrew said imposter syndrome, I just tweeted her video and wrote, "This cured my imposter syndrome." I was like, you know what? Maybe I am a great comedian. Maybe I deserve a Netflix special.
Yo, that's very
yeah.
true though, because you're so much funnier than her.
Wow, thanks, Brian. Well, humor is subjective, but okay. So this is the serious thought I had about it. This is what I think is very serious, and I'm just gonna keep it short because I could ramble about stand-up comedy forever, which nobody wants.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of feel like, you know, like she's gotten a lot of like negative press because she apologized. She was like a Joe Rogan apologist. Like she apologized for him saying the N-word. And then she apologized for Chris D'Elia for sexually assaulting minors. And people were like, okay, we're done with this. Why are
Right.
But I feel like a lot of women that are successful in stand-up become successful even if they're not funny, because those kind of men, like the upper echelon of stand-up, want her around. Do you know what I mean? Like, because she apologizes for them.
Oh, for
Sorry,
sure.
Andrew looks so bored. He's like,
oh no, I'm absorbed by listening. Yeah, I actually don't know much about the stand-up world, so I admit it's new to me.
oh,
Yeah, no,
So
but I don't think
yeah.
I think you're onto something here, Youngmi, because you know, we're in the stand-up field, and I've heard that a lot of these women who they're like girls. They tear down other women because there's this like scarcity mindset, and I feel that I think you're speaking
then they
to
get
that
allowed
right
in the world, the misogynistic world, and then they become the lapdogs, and then they're apologizing for all the rapists. And I think there's another layer to this, and I'm going to be very careful because I feel like this kind of treads on my own internalized misogyny. But I mean, Whitney Cummings is known as somebody that's like not as funny as her peers, you know, like. I mean, obviously, yes, humor is subjective, but like you listen to showcases with her and like Dave Chappelle, and obviously she doesn't get as many laughs as like her buddies and stuff like that. I feel that the men that are like running stand-up not purposefully, because there's also the aspect of she like kisses their ass, but like I think that they always have one like, you know, token woman on their lineup, and it's always a woman that's like not as funny, and I feel like it's on fucking purpose, because you know you hear those stand-up guys being like, women aren't funny, that's all they ever fucking say about women. And like I know so many stand-up comedians that are women that could go toe to toe with fucking all of those comedians, but they would never hire them because they want someone like Whitney Cummings, you know, to go, and they're going to go on tour with her. They're in Tallahassee or whatever. And then the audience is like, wow, that was a great show, but the woman wasn't funny. I feel like they do it on purpose. I swear to God. Because then they're like, yeah, we told you women aren't funny.
Yeah.
Before you get mad at me for saying, and I don't believe women aren't funny, because every woman I know is fucking funny. But we're not going on tour with fucking Chappelle. We're out like with the gays, actually having like funny shows in Brooklyn, you know?
Very true.
Because we don't want to get raped, mostly.
Yeah. I mean, but I think we both know this. Like, stand-up it's an art form where your reputation precedes you. So it's not in so much about talent. There's so many other variables of like, are you a good hang? Like, what are you like off stage? It's a lot of bullshit like that.
Yes.
I wish it was more meritocratic, but unfortunately, it's not the case, and that's why a lot of unfunny people do carve out successful careers.
It's so unfortunate, though. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to be too mean about this, but like, because then you're proving their weird point. You know, then Joe Rogan's like, I told you women aren't funny. Oh. And I'm like, oh, you're proving his fucking point. Why can't they hire, like, I don't know, Yamanika Sanders or something? I mean, I'm sure she gets gigs too, but like,
Sure.
It drives me insane.
I think it's like the whole system. It's
a whole system.
Because I mean, like Whitney Cummings, yeah, she's, you know, say what you want about her stand-up, but she created the show Two Broke Girls, which I'm pretty sure is like the most syndicated show in American television. So she's collecting like huge paychecks from that.
Oh, she did.
And I'm just like,
I thought that was somebody else.
No, she created that, but you know, it's not my cup of tea in terms of a television show, but apparently there's millions and millions of people around the world who really fucking love Two Broke Girls. So I'm like, all right, well, you know, maybe she knows something I don't. That's not the type of art I would want to create. Good point. But
yeah.
Instead, I'm gonna be mad at those people. I'm like, stop watching Two Broke Girls and watch.
But yeah,
watch other types of television.
That's a really good point, Brian. And I just want to emphasize, you know, humor is subjective. Maybe I'm like saying all this stuff because she's not somebody that I find funny, but there's obviously middle America loves the shit out of Whitney Cummings. So who am I? You know what I mean?
Let's be fucking elitist to those flyover states. That's something we can all rally behind.
Classes. Like, they're not gonna laugh at my fucking Korean hairy butthole jokes. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're gonna laugh at Whitney Cummings R. Kelly joke. That's not for me to judge.
Right.
Oh, but anyway, I guess so. My feeling about that, really, I mean, I made the joke like I'm cured of my imposter syndrome, but really, I took a moment and I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm not gonna feel bad about me not being funny anymore. Cause,
as you shouldn't.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, because to some people I am funny, right? Who knows?
Absolutely.
I think that feeling of when you watch something and deep down you're like, I could do better. You know, I think that's a really powerful feeling and worth holding on to.
I'm glad that you said that because there's sometimes the motivation for me to create comes off of, you know, this nice, beautiful place of I want people to see me. But sometimes it comes from I want that fucking bitch that I hate to feel like shit.
Oh yeah.
When she sees what I
spite is
me at the fucking Oscars.
A powerful motivator.
And like what you just said, that person sucks. So now I gotta really do my thing. You know, yin and yang. You know, the universe has no judgment. Whatever energy you need to suck from the universe to create, do it.
Did you guys read Patti Smith's memoir, Just Us Kids?
Yes.
She has in the opening chapter, she has a moment like that. I believe she's watching The Doors on stage, and she's like, I could do that. You know, like. Yeah. This is great. It's great, and that's what like kicked her off. You know, as she went off and like did her thing. So I think it's a powerful feeling.
Yeah. We're off to such a great start. Listeners, what we're telling you right now, make a fucking mortal enemy and then want badly to do better than them. And you will be the next Patti Smith. How about you, Brian? How are you feeling?
Oh, God. Yeah, I'm feeling great. I'm feeling... Well, for one, I'm fucking loving this spite, this conversation surrounding spite and being a fucking hater because this is the type of shit that I thrive on. But quite frankly, I am feeling rejuvenated and fresh because I had myself a very, as the Gen Zers would call it, a very cottagecore weekend. I went to Connecticut. So I went to Connecticut this weekend and just chilled by a lake all weekend. Went paddle boarding.
Andrew. We lost him. We lost Brian to the whites. I'm just kidding. That sounds really great. I'm just joking.
No, 100% though. I mean, I joke. I tell myself that I'm fulfilling my parents' destiny for me because they forced me to play like tennis and golf and play squash from a young age. So this is what they wanted for me, and I finally did it. And yeah, so this past weekend I went up to Connecticut with a few friends, chilled by a lake. We made pizzas, read at home, paddleboarding on a lake. And Young, I gotta say, the whites are onto something. This was a fucking amazing weekend.
Aw, that sounds like so much fun. Did you have like one of those I don't know why I just saw this in my head, but like a wood fire pizza oven or something?
Well, 100%. We were like putting wood chips into the burner.
Oh, you did. Wow, you went full white.
Yeah, fully.
Wow. That's
But
beautiful.
hey,
I love that.
I'm not hating. I love it. It was great. You know,
Sounds
there was
beautiful.
there was like a street fair, and it was just filled with just awful items. But because it's a street fair in Connecticut, you're like, oh, this is so cute. This is great. Isn't it great to get out of New York and be a part of this? Yeah.
Did you buy a butterfly wind chime?
Yeah.
It was a lot of that.
Blown glass, paperweights.
Nice.
It was like a child selling lemonade for $15 a cup, but it's cute because it's a kid in Connecticut.
Wow.
But yeah, it was much needed though. I felt that I was the noise of New York was getting to me mentally, and this hard reset was much needed. So, I'm coming back with a clean slate. So you're getting a very mentally well version of me, Andrew.
Sounds
So
beautiful.
that's how I'm feeling.
I'm glad. Self-care.
Yeah. No, I'm all about it. So that you're getting the cottagecore, Brian. How are you feeling, Andrew?
Nice.
I'm good. To be honest, I'm very anxious. I'm on the verge of maybe making my movie. I've been planning it. I've been working on this for 6 years. We are closing a deal right now for financing, and if all goes well, I'll either be prepping my movie by end of this month, or I won't. Or maybe it may be pushed to next year. But I honestly just can't wait any longer. It's been so long, and I need multiple needles to be threaded for this all to happen on time. And I know that other productions are also in the fall, like prepping now, and so I'm just very anxious to get moving. And like in my normal daily life, I'm just sitting right here at this kitchen table, like on my laptop. So it's like this weird combination of like being very quiet and sedentary, and also just wanting to go. So I'm just kind of holding my breath right now, but like otherwise I'm fine. I'm just like, I still, COVID cases in LA have still been relatively high, and so I just haven't really like gone out much. So I've been living kind of also what you might call a cottagecore life, and that I've just like I've been very like much a homebody. So I'm just like going to bed early and taking care of my health, and it's all good. Very peaceful otherwise.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Well, first and foremost, this is so exciting about your feature film. This is for Tiger Girl, right?
Yeah. It's called Tiger Girl. It's set in the 1967 in Los Angeles, and it's about a Chinatown girl who's haunted by a tiger in her attic. It's been something I've been writing for a very long time, and I've learned, it's been very humbling learning about film financing and how this all works. So
so you're like, it sounds like you're at the home stretch though.
We are. It will happen. It's just a question of like timing.
Right. And you're feeling anxious because you want to like start right now.
I wanted to start 2 years ago, the pandemic, and I mean, it's all been beneficial time, but I'm just aware of like, I was recently told Disney just acquired a very similar story. I just want to go, I think the hardest thing is being artists is that you come up with an idea in 2016, but then actually executing it takes a long time. And so by the time the idea comes out, it feels like 2016. you know, and especially
Yeah.
in certain media that just take longer.
Yeah.
It's harder. Film will always be behind the cultural curve because of how slow and difficult it is. So
That's fascinating.
yeah, it's just a delay time.
Yeah. I'm so fascinated by that art form in particular, and you know, like I said, I find it so hard to even like begin to understand how all that works. So it just seems like there's like 15 plates in the air, and all of them have to like be up there, and I'm like, I can't even like, I can barely tweet, you know, like 5 tweets a day, you know. But like I was gonna ask, so the I can barely keep my one thing. I can barely check my emails, you know.
Yeah, seriously.
I was gonna ask about the film. When you said she's haunted by a tiger, is it gonna have your signature visual? And it's gonna be like that, very heavy, and that's your style.
Short answer is
Obviously.
yeah. I mean, I think one of the reasons why it's been very hard for me to make a first movie is because my stuff is so visual and therefore expensive. And I was, you know, back in like 2016, I was at this juncture of like, so if I make a movie for like $1 or $2 million, like, do I have to tell some like kitchen sink immigrant story, you know, like to get like
financing
from, or to get into the lab, even just like applying for all the Sundance labs and stuff. I was like, am I required to write some heart bleeding story about my Chinese family and blah blah blah, you know, like I don't like, I felt like my white counterparts didn't have to do that, but it was, you know what, that I, at the same time, I admit that I wasn't being as vulnerable with my work, and I hadn't yet cracked how to weave my identity with my work. So I was, you know, as someone who grew up on a diet of like Labyrinth and The Dark Crystal and like, you know, like big fantasy visual movies, I was like, you know what, I can do both. I can make a movie that interweaves both, but I just need to work at it and start weaving these things together. And so, you know, I said it in this time period because my mom was this, you know, I felt like I hadn't seen my parents' generation on screen yet. I haven't, my parents, my mom was a teenager in the late 60s, early 70s. And I just remember seeing photographs of them like with big hair, like driving their roadsters around LA. And I just feel like that could be on screen and there could be this fantasy component. And I
love that.
And since then also, I feel like we've seen so many writers, Asian writers with the same instinct. So I really think that the work is already being made. It's just not all on screen yet. And I do think Everything Everywhere is a prime example of something that did that so well, that took genre, wove it into a personal story. That's the kind of stuff we need. So yeah,
absolutely.
So yeah, can I say along the lines of what you said about what people expect from you, like an Asian sort of immigrant story, you were saying that your big influences were queer Asian mythology. Is that am I phrasing that correctly? Can you like talk about that a little bit, because I am unsure if I've ever even heard of that.
Yeah, so I grew up in a Japanese American church. My entire kind of spiritual religious life was just so, it was like a Baptist church, and it was just so whitewashed and my mom was just very, very devout. And that was just the environment that I grew up in. And I always was wondering why, we would visit my grandparents' graves, and I remember like doing like Joss paper offering, or at least watching my grandmother do Joss paper offering and being like, so like our roots are hella pagan.
Yeah.
Like, yes. And we're worshiping this Judeo-Christian God.
Right.
And as you know, the
Tomato.
church is so popular among Chinese people and Koreans, and like I was just like, what's going on? And I think I did kind of have like, I like stopped going to church in college, and I just put that part of my life away for a long time, and then after like going to therapy and in my late 20s and just really thinking about my spiritual background, I think like folklore and mythology and dream analysis and all that kind of Jungian stuff was really new to me. And so I was looking at, okay, like in kind of my roots research, I was like trying to just educate myself on what is Chinese mythology, because my grandmother would like, she would just have like these random like Chinese deities around the house, like kitschy ceramic stuff, and it was so mysterious, like who's the bald bearded guy with like the little baby like peach faced children hanging off him, like who's who like Guan Yin,
like I see it all the time, but I have no idea what it is or what it is.
Like who's that peach lady riding the fish dragon? Like I don't know who these people are. So like in that research, I was like, I became very interested in mythology. And then actually I was in Mexico City, and there is an exhibit on for an Aztec god named Xochipilli, and he's like the patron saint of homosexuality and flowers. And his statue is him like tripping out on shrooms, like holding mushrooms and like in a state of ecstasy, and his pedestal has like native flowers like engraved on it. And I was like, that is so powerful. Like why don't we've got to have a patron god of every cult. It made me start to question like, where are instances of queerness and homosexuality in mythology? And the truth is, they've like Asian mythology is riddled with queer narratives. It's just a lot of them have been erased or just overlooked, or relegated to like folk knowledge or oral tradition. And so like I had directed narrative before in my early career, but I never really, it was never personal, and I had never quite cracked like how to do it. And so in 2018, I made a short film called Kiss of the Rabbit God, and it was about a Chinese god that I found through like the internet that is a patron saint of homosexuality, and he has a temple in Taipei. And so I was like, can I tell a story about this god visiting a Chinese restaurant in present day and him being kind of like a K-pop star? And so I was like, okay, this material is right for the picking, and it's like we can like reinvent this and make it a contemporary language. And so that's kind of my long-winded answer of like how I kind of came around to that.
I love hearing about all of this and your relationship to mythology, and it sort of like paints this fuller picture of your work, because I was introduced to your work through your like music videos, and when I would describe it to my friends, I would use the adjective like mythological in a way, because you have a lot of like iconography, and I love the use of like different types of emergent technologies that you implement into your music videos. But it was like these like ethereal creatures, or like you create these like new worlds. And I guess in terms of process, like for instance, your iconic music video Cellophane with FKA Twigs, which was nominated for a Grammy, like because it's so fantastical, like, and the imagery is like it's otherworldly. Do you already know in your head how it's going to play out, or is it kind of like Play-Doh when you're making like films like this, and it just sort of happens in a stroke of inspiration? Because I wouldn't even know where to begin. Like I see your work and your art, and I'm like, oh, this is so far beyond me. Like, how does this even happen?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I've just been very grateful and lucky to work with artists who are able and willing to have conversation about what the work is about. I've worked with some musicians who are like, I don't know, like just make some visuals, or they just don't want to talk about. I mean, asking any artist to talk about their work is like so hard, and so I don't expect it from every musician. But Twigs is unique in that within like the first 5 minutes of meeting her, we just got really deep really fast, and she was very frank about the emotional ups and downs of the, you know, the 3 years that had passed since her first LP, breaking up with Robert Pattinson, how devastating that was, the health problems she was having, the trauma of like sudden fame. It was basically like she had been through a traumatic experience, and she was currently at that time learning pole. And you know, so I'm grateful because she teed me up with just a personal narrative and a practice that she was doing that I knew that I would center my story around. But also I think like my main background is drawing and painting, and so I started sketching like a kind of map of the universe, saying like, I think she had this idea. She was saying that she was at that time obsessed with Mary Magdalene as a figure that was both shamed but also persevered and is this saintly figure, and so I just had this idea of like what is also just maybe also just knowing Twigs as a public figure, as someone who's like can do everything. She's kind of like she's like the ultimate baddie, and she can just kind of do everything. But I learned too that like there is this striving for perfection that is very clear as like a, she's just such an artist. I could tell, like, to me the story was about striving for perfection and just failing and just being human. And so I just had a map of like, let's start her off like doing pole for an invisible audience, and surrendering her body to this gaze, and in order to like strive upwards on this pole towards like a perfect version of herself that she could never attain. And then when she finally attains it, she realizes it's like a total mirror of her. She crashes through it, and that like the climax of the video is her failing and falling, and then we end with her, the complete reverse of her. In the beginning, she's like looking just like hot and hard and glossy, and then at the end, she's just like covered in mud and naked and shivering. So to me, it started with a story and a map of that universe where we have the mortal world with her performing for the audience, the upper world where she's confronting this herself, and then the thing that she can never be, and then the underworld where she's being put back together. And so I think I do try and think in terms of like narrative, personal story. It's almost like I was taking her dream and interpreting it in a visual way and then drawing it out. So I think that's how I like to work. And I think it is, frankly, some of the, again, like it's Jungian language that I think is helpful for interpreting someone's story.
I have to say, Andrew, this is not even a question. This is just it's going to be a very long-winded compliment. But, Brian, loves your visuals, and they're very, they're very you. I think people can like tell it's your work when they see these like very specific types of visuals. But what I really love is basically what you were talking about right now. Like, you have a very strong storytelling like sense. And it's like the fact that you can hear, FK Twigs tell this story, and like she's going to give you all these emotions, and you turn it into visuals. Do you know what I mean? And like, I think that's like that skill in you is so strong, because like watching that music video, I was like, I get it. I know what this is about. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're so good at communicating that visually. And then when you were just saying, sorry, I was gonna note the stuff that you were talking about before. God, sorry. It was like I was like really focusing on the story. I feel like your personal story about your relationship to not knowing this part of your culture, that the like the mythology, and discovering that, and that was taken away from you, and like how you're like writing that visually, You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, that is such a, I feel like that's like, you're just so amazing at that.
Thank you. That
It's
means
really
a lot.
moving.
Thank
It's so
you.
moving. It feels so rich.
Thank you. And it takes two. Like I really am thankful to her, like Twigs' vulnerability. That couldn't, in a way,
Yeah.
cellophane just can't happen again because it can only happen with an artist who is as vulnerable and is as generous and is as just like acrobatically inclined. Like
she got the moves
she
and the abs.
trained for like 6 months to a year to do that, and it's her. It's not a stunt double. It's like she really is amazing. Amazing.
It's such a good like I know there's a fancy word for it now. I want to say it, but like what's that when two animals like work off each other, like the sea urchin
symbiosis.
Yeah, it's like a symbiotic relationship because there's you on the one hand who's like this great storyteller, like visual, like beautiful storyteller, and you really know what to do, but then there's also this other person that's like giving you this emotional openness and vulnerability to really feed into that, and so it must have felt really like, feels juicy. It's so like I don't know, rich feeling.
Totally. I love when that happens. I think the chemistry of the band is so special. I became a filmmaker because I don't want to work alone.
Right.
It's very lonely.
Right.
What we do.
And your work is very powerful, and I think as viewers, like we're lucky enough to experience it, and justifiably so. Like you have been, it has been recognized as such because you were nominated. Like the music video for Cellophane was nominated for a Grammy. But speaking of which, we want to ask you a little bit about some tea here. Just like a cursory Google search will show that there's a lot of comparisons to your music video with Twigs. A year later, Lil Nas X released a music video for Montero, which bears a striking resemblance to your music video for Cellophane. Can you walk us through how that all felt? Because I'm sure a lot of people were like tagging you on socials.
Yeah, you got tagged. I want to tell our wonderful sound engineer Ollie to like implement like a ding sound. Like let's name all the similarities. Stripper pole. Ollie just put in a ding right there. So heaven and hell.
Otherworldly, falling down.
Creatures. Yeah, the fall from grace. There was music in both. I'm just kidding.
I just want to open by saying that whole experience was really educational for me. I learned a lot from that whole experience. I also want to open by saying I am a huge Lil Nas X fan. I do think that his overall marketing is genius. I'm a big fan, and I would love to work with him any day. I think that and the truth is, both of these artists, having them on Dupole, both of them, like him as a queer black man and her as, a black woman, I think having them on pole is like a powerful statement and a needed one, and there's room for both. I think that the truth is too is that there's nothing original, and I totally acknowledge that.
That's
nothing
true.
is original under the sun. Yes, the imagery that I created for Twigs was and totally inspired by my own like Christian background and fighting that, and clearly Nas X was as well. As it looks like he also had some like religious unpacking to do as well, and the lap dance that he does with Satan at the end is actually the thing people I think remember most. So I do also acknowledge that the videos like achieve very different goals, and the rest of Montero is very different, and I think Tanu Muino, who did the video, is really really talented. I think when I first saw the similarities, I was like, I clocked it, but I just like didn't want to say anything because I just know that it never really ends up good if you do.
Right.
Yeah.
But I was definitely like encouraged to, and I think after saying something about it, sorry, there's also just a lot of side conversations that happened that I can't share on this podcast.
Right.
I think what I learned too is that whenever there is any kind of controversy like this, like there's a lot of conversations the public doesn't know. If only they knew.
Yes.
But I can't share that. And it was creepy and scary to like have like tabloids like take snapshots of my social media and like to suddenly be like on TMZ. It was like weird. It was gross. And it was gross seeing people trying to pit these artists against each other. It was like sad. But like I don't think Nas X did anything on purpose. I think like I do know that they knew my work because they actually did reach out to me. Like specifically to direct Montero. Right. And I said I was up to meet with him because I was a fan. Yeah. And then it just never happened. And we were literally at the Grammys together. Like, because Cellophane was up against Old Town Road that same year. And, and, you know, he took home the award, which was great and groundbreaking. I think that it was...
I think Cellophane was better than Old Town Road. I'm sorry. Like, Old Town Road was like as a music,
words, not yours.
not song or musician wise, just like straight looking at a music video. That's just my opinion. It's subjective.
This actually goes back to the very thing you opened our talk with about who holds the keys to making these decisions.
Yeah.
You know, the Grammys, the Oscars, these award shows are there to reinstitute the power of the institution itself and to validate it. And I think that as tempting as it was to be like, oh, they copied, you know, it's like, it doesn't matter. People like culture is all about copying and reimagining. It's not about that. It's about who are the like cis white dudes sitting at the heads of these record labels.
Yep.
Making decisions about which artists are championed over others. Right. The truth is, Twigs and Nas X are like sovereign artists in their own right, and but there is capital. There's a capital
white guy
difference.
In Little Nas X's video that is popular among other white men. Just saying.
There are executives and it's not one person. This takes an industry-wide complicity in a system that gives some artists more capital over others. Yeah. And when you win a Grammy, it translates into capital. Or an Oscar, it translates into hard capital. And so I think what I learned is that like we need to be, rather than criticizing these two artists or these two works, we should be interrogating why music videos, or why first of all, like why certain artists get boost over others, how artists are making, like Sasami actually, who is your previous guest, told me that that a lot of musicians make more money with their music on YouTube than they do on Spotify. Like we can't separate the issue. Like as music video directors, we're kind of the bottom of the chain. Like it really boils down to which musicians are getting fed at first and who's making money, because that translates into their advertising budgets. And then, you know, and the truth is like making music videos is a really thankless, it's really hard to make music videos. There's no money in it. And I think it would matter less if we were all fed and equally. Right. And if there was more equity, it wouldn't have been a problem.
Absolutely.
And I'm really glad you said that there's no like beef between artists because they're just creating. But it's like we really have to like interrogate and look at the system. And it reminds me so much of bringing up more Grammy beef. Taylor Swift and Beyonce, that whole fiasco. And I was like, yeah, because like just, I don't know, objectively, like from an artist point of view, Beyonce's music video was artistically better. I know that's subjective. And, you know, it's like Taylor Swift's video just seemed like it was like slapped together in 10 minutes. I don't know. I don't want to get anyone in hot. I don't want to get Brian in trouble with the Taylor Swift stand. Yeah. But, it's like, but it's like what you said, it's the capital, like who, you know, like what's what's the whole system
Exactly.
behind who chooses what's
Yeah.
quote unquote the best.
And I think you said it very gracefully, and you're very level-headed about all of this, and it is a larger, the takeaway is like it's a larger discussion about the institutions that are in place.
Yes.
And
yes.
Yeah.
as a fan of your work, and this is separate from what you're saying, I feel that it's just very it must be really frustrating, because when I saw the Montero music video, and we can all agree, like, Lil Nas X he's like humongous. He has like, he's a genius artist, genius marketer. He is like at the pinnacle of the industry, where anything he touches, it's like Midas gold. And the resemblance was like, it was so uncanny. And I think the timing of it was just very, in fact, it felt like disrespectful, because you are a Grammy nominated music video director, and just like a year later, it's so obvious that your work probably was on a mood board somewhere, and they're like, yeah, whatever, like,
Yeah.
like you see this a lot in the fashion industry, where it's like, well, we're Lil Nas X, like, we're fucking Nike, we're like Warner Brothers, we're huge, we're Amazon, we're Facebook, like, fuck it, let's just run with it, because we have the firepower to like squash anything that may come from this. So that's my take. It is.
Yeah.
It's like a power imbalance that exists.
That's how I felt before I talked to Andrew. But then I also, what really resonated with me, what you were saying, I still feel like that. I know that happens in every industry. It's unfair. The bigger person's going to get, take your idea and run with it. That happens. Duh. Whitney Cummings stole my R. Kelly joke. I'm just kidding. I did not come up with that joke. I would never. but like, that's why I'm actually upset. No, I'm just kidding. I would never joke about that. But after hearing what you said, Andrew, I think, number one, you're totally right. We just copy stuff off each other all the time without even knowing. Sometimes I'll tweet something and I'll be like, I'll see somebody like saying a joke and I'm like, that's my joke. And then I'll look and they actually came up with it 3 months before I did. And I was like, oh, well then and it's just like parallel thinking, and no one's really, like, these ideas float around. And also, I just want to say, I think what you said about Lil Nas X is the symbolism with, the devil and making out with the devil is extremely powerful, and that's all him. And that's like, there's similarities, but the core of the idea is like very interesting and unique, and
I think Nas X's his battles with the church parallel my own, and I think that's cool.
Yes.
If we were all just like making ceramics in a safe art space, and you see someone else's ceramic and you kind of like do what they're doing, and everyone gets an award, no one would care. It would be like really fine. But the fact that there's some invisible hand, patriarchal white hand, just deciding who gets like the magic chalice, that gives you capital from here on forward, then that's when, it's like, it goes back to the very thing you were saying about this, just our industries are not meritocracies. And I was really,
yes,
I'm going to say it. It was just an education on really who we should be blaming. It's a shame that an artist as hardworking and talented as Twigs, like, do you remember at the Grammys, I think a year or two ago, she was pole dancing behind Usher, and I was like, she should be the act. Like, she's not the backup. She is the act, and that's what I mean when it's like, why isn't someone like her getting as much as much acclaim? And then the truth is, it's because her work is more transgressive. It's because it is more boundary pushing and it is more critical, is the reason why the system does not want to foreground someone like her. So I mean, but I do think Nas X is an example of how someone can also be transgressive and a bop at the same time. I think that you
so
can't, like, there is like
transgressive, and then one of them,
again, it's hard to compare these things.
Absolutely.
Back in the old days, it would be like like a black singer and then Elvis, who just copied that black singer, and then Elvis would win all the awards, and we're like, duh. But now it's like, oh, these are very similar artists, and yeah, how is it? What's going on behind the scenes?
Appropriation doesn't happen with one person. It takes an entire community to create that theft and to celebrate that theft unconsciously.
Celebrate that theft. Yes.
It's very unconscious. I remember
yes.
I remember like,
you know,
in like 2011 being like, wait a minute, we have like Amy Winehouse, Florence and the Machine, all these like soulful women, but they're
singers.
All like Adele. They're all soul singers, but you notice a pattern? And who celebrated that? Who chose that? It's never one instance. It's the system. And that's where music is. I think that's why music is the kind of the cultural ground upon which we get so fired up about these artists, because they symbolize all of these things that we know to be true. Whether it's Beyonce versus Taylor Swift, it's really, and you know, Björk is the first one to point out too that like the music industry has historically pitted women artists against each other.
Yeah,
it's like so fucked up. It's like,
and then like you said, the behind the scenes is that they're not even against each other at all. You know,
no,
there's nothing going on there.
There's nothing going on there, and so, you know, you don't see the industry doing that with male performers. No, male artists.
I feel bad. I would feel like I was tricked into hating Whitney Cummings. It's really for both of us. It's always coming back to this. I'm spiraling now. I'm like, what a bitch. This like, why am I going after her? There's room at the table for
it's
both.
Okay, we'll just title this episode "We Love You, Whitney."
I mean, look, these are all very like relatable. These are all such relatable emotions, and then this slides very well into the topic of like Asians in entertainment, right? Like how hard it has been for us to carve real estate for everyone, and which Asians are let in first. You know, like which Asians are given the role first. And it's brutal. Yeah. It's brutal.
Yeah. Well,
fascinating. You have such great insight. I love this. Everything you're saying is making so much sense.
Mic drop moments. Bangers only. Andrew's only bringing the bangers. No, but you bring up a great point where like it is like, you know, it's insulting that FKA Twigs is reduced to just like, you know, dancing behind Usher when, and we have to always mention like art is subjective, but I think like FKA Twigs is so much more. She's pushing the boundary so much more than Usher is, you know. But but that's not a knock against like Usher. Like he has bangers too, and there's room for everyone. But I mean, it's always like there's gonna be like a groundbreaking transgressive artist, like a quote unquote like art housey and sensibility, and then the mainstream's like the mainstream industrial complex controlled by the invisible white hand with the magic chalice is like, oh great. This is we have a pulse on this. This is good. Let's just reappropriate this. But you know, hopefully I feel like that gap is getting narrower, because even with films like Everything Everywhere All at Once, when I saw it, my first takeaway out of the theater was like, wow, I'm surprised this got greenlit, because it's so like experimental and out there, and I hadn't really like seen anything like it before. So hopefully, like, you know, going forward, like that gap won't exist as much, and like these bigger industrial complexes will be able to take chances on this transgressive type of work, which I'm optimistic. I think we're like, because everyone's so TikTok pilled now, like we're all thirsty for something fresh and new visually.
TikTok pilled. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm remembering all these Grammy moments now. Remember Macklemore winning over Kendrick Lamar?
Oh my god.
Wow.
Over Kendrick.
History has not been kind to that decision.
I remember in 8th grade, you know, I saw the movie Magnolia, and Amy Mann did the soundtrack, and I was such a fan. And then I remember she performed at the Oscars, and then she was up for Best Song. And then, like, Tarzan won with Phil Collins. And I was like, it's rigged. It's all rigged, you know? Like, it was a huge awakening for me. I was like, oh, like, fuck award shows, you know? Like,
Phil Collins.
gosh. Oh my god.
No shade on
Yeah.
Phil Collins, you know.
Like the Grammys are run by like 65-year-old men when you saw that happening. They're just like having their little wine spritzers and you'll be in my heart, or like on a yacht somewhere. They're like, this is the one that wins.
Yeah,
Phil Collins was on the yacht. You're gonna win, Phil. Phil's in. Get him in there. Who the fuck is Amy Mann? That's what happened. They're on the golf course.
And her Twitter, I think Amy Mann's Twitter, I believe her like self-description was like Oscar loser for like the longest time. I don't know if it's still the case.
I fucking love that.
But like whatever. These are the systems. We're all stuck in these straitjackets of capitalism, and we can never get out of it.
I'm like shocked that where that conversation went, because I thought you were gonna just tell us, like the nitty gritty industry background, and I feel like you just like really got to the core of the issue, and it was something that people don't think, because people were buying this fucking narrative like it's FKA Twigs against Lil Nas X, and they're gonna fight in the parking lot.
I mean, look, I was upset. I was, and there is nitty gritty that I can tell you off the record, but I just, but at the end of the day, this is the lesson I learned, and it's in the future, I think I would just keep my mouth shut, to be honest, because like the fans are so passionate, and it's really scary to have fans of a mega pop artist come after you.
Oh God!
I had a K-pop band actually very clearly like reference my work, but and I actually didn't know. I didn't know.
That's just playing with fire.
This is what happened on Twitter. So someone took screenshots of that video and then of Cellophane. And they were like, look, this K-pop artist like ripped you off, Andrew. And then I wrote back. This is before Nas X. I just wrote back on Twitter. I just said, like, I'll take it as flattery. Cool. Like, I really didn't. I actually was not bothered. I was like, cool, I'll take it as flattery. K-pop fans like took that tweet and they were like, director accuses this like K-pop band of like plagiarism. And then they descended on my Twitter. And it was legitimately scary. They were like, "Oh, Andrew just wants the clout," like, and they were they were like threatening to dox my account.
I'm surprised you're still here with us.
I am still alive to tell this tale.
You suffer the ire of K-pop stans.
Yeah. And then like the director of that K-pop video was some Korean director, and he sent me a video being like, "What? Like, come at me, like."
Oh my God!
Like I was like, "What? Yeah." Like it was like, I mean, it was like, whoa.
I'm gonna say something. Yeah. I'm gonna say some anti-Korean racism. Are you ready? It's okay, I'm Korean, I can say this. Korean people be copying shit.
Oh.
They fucking straight up rip shit off.
To the max.
I mean, in East
I don't know
Asia,
anymore, but
I do think
back
that
when
the
I was
idea,
growing up. Yeah.
The idea of originality is just so different
Very different.
Outside of the West. So same with Chinese people.
Yes.
Chinese people have made it their identity to copy and make better, or at least try to make better, but like
it's kind of based. It's based.
Yeah,
because you're like, why can't I just make a Balenciaga swimsuit? What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
Yours is $1,000, mine is $30. Who cares?
Yeah,
I mean, the whole K-pop industrial complex is just that. It's just some guy who worked at MTV in America was like, all right, I'm just gonna bite this shit and bring it to Korea and inject steroids into it, and now we have K-pop.
It's very pragmatic.
Yeah.
But wait, why did that guy get mad at you? Because it's like obviously that's
I don't know. Again, I really was not bothered.
And you weren't trying to stir up shit. You're just like, all right, cool, like.
Yeah. So just fans are forced to be reckoned with, and it's better just to lie low and let culture unfold the way it unfolds.
Damn. Well.
Unless there's money involved, but
then you get the lawyers. You should just knock off like a K-pop video, like whatever that director is like. Whenever he makes a new video, just knock it off. The same thing, and make the exact same thing. And if he says anything, you're like, what are you talking about?
I mean, I think copying. I think for any young artist, copying is a powerful form of learning. It's a powerful form of teaching yourself and studying how something was done well. Like, I mean, that's how I learned to make art. It's I copy.
Yeah.
I would look at a painting and then I would try and or a Disney character. I would try and draw the Disney character. Like that's how you do. You are stealing the power and studying it and making it your own. And I think we have to honor the power of copying. And I think nothing should be precious, I think. And I think our ideas of originality in the West should be interrogated. Nothing is that original.
White people think that they always came up with everything, and I'm like, no, you're copying each other left and right. And that idea, you know, I'm the one that said it. I was the one that was being racist against Koreans. But that idea that Asian people are more of a copy cheaty than white people is a white supremacist ideology. You know, white people say like, oh, Asians can't come up with shit, so they copy us. But lo and behold, you know, we had the gunpowder, we had the spaghetti. You know, that was ours. Let's get, you know, they're like, oh, like that reminds me of the huge there was like this huge lawsuit between Samsung and iPhones, Apple, and this white judge, for some reason, it was like an international thing, but the judge was white, was like, well, obviously Apple, Samsung copied Apple, but then it turned out that Samsung had all these things before Apple, like they had FaceTime before iPhones had FaceTime, and so Samsung was like, shut the fuck up. It's like, oh, right. White people only see it when they're I think
the takeaway is white people should actually be more appreciative when Asian people copy their shit, because it's always better. I mean, look at Americana fashion. Japanese people do that shit way better than Americans do it. And now you got fucking dope threads and dope fits. Like, be grateful.
And also, white people are copying all of the Asian stuff, and they're not noticing when they do it. Like, I always think about this. This might be, I don't know enough about pop music for this to be 100% accurate, but I think Ariana Grande is a complete knockoff of like J-pop stars. Like she's just a J-pop singer. Like that's what every J-pop singer looked like.
She's gone through a lot of different variations.
And she's finally
so maybe
coming
like
into
2017,
the final
2019
stage of
Ariana.
becoming a J-pop. Yeah, but I was like, obviously her management, whatever people that created her character were heavily influenced by J-pop music. Like, and why can't we acknowledge that? Right? I don't know. There's no such thing as copying. We're all just uploading files from the collective mother brain.
Consciousness, collective consciousness exists. This totally exists. We have all experienced coming up with ideas and then realizing, oh my god, like I'm there's like 5 other people doing the same thing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know, and like
Yep.
Yeah. Well, Andrew, thanks so much for dropping the hot takes and getting real with us. But we're gonna jump into our little Patreon portion here, where for our listeners, we're gonna hit Andrew with some questions about his feelings, about what he's loving right now, what he's hating, and what he's ashamed of. So if you wanna hear what he has to say, go over to our Patreon and subscribe at patreon.com/feelingasian. So Andrew, what's something you're loving right now? Andrew, thank you so much for bringing the juice, bringing the heat. I think the stuff you were hating on is something that a lot of our listeners will relate to.
I got so angry. I was like, I took that from Andrew. I was like, no, I hate it more.
But before we let you go, we like to ask all of our guests this one last question, and that is, what is something that you're proud of?
Oh gosh, yeah, I didn't prepare this one. Oh, sorry, I'm just like cycling through all these like maybe cliche responses. I guess I'm proud of just maybe like I'm proud of my family. I'm proud that like my parents they're doing well. They're like happy and busy, and they're active, and I'm just like I owe everything I have to them, and I'm proud of the fact that they, like my mom, my mom became a social worker in the 70s because there was no Asian, like there were no therapists that could understand Asian immigrant issues.
Wow.
And she even like led a civil rights walkout at UCLA at the time in her department, because there were no like ethnic studies at UCLA at the time. And so she's made it her life's work to create counseling and therapy, family services for immigrants. And, you know, my dad also like just, grew up like really poor in Chinatown and became an electrical engineer and like worked in aerospace. And I just feel like they're the children of immigrants who really did the work to better themselves and provide for me. And I'm just proud that they're my parents and that they've given me even all the opportunities I had as a kid to become an artist, and the encouragement. That's something that I don't take for granted as an Asian kid. I know that many Asian parents don't foster that. So I'm just very proud of my parents and my family.
So Andrew, I have to cut you off because we've had multiple guests attempt to be proud of somebody else. And I feel like you have to focus on.
Did I give like an Asian response? Oh no.
Yeah, well, but that's okay. Which is fine because guess what I did? I just pulled up your website, so I'm going to read all your awards and honors. Everyone ready? This is what you should be proud of. 2020 Sundance Screenwriters and Directors Lab Fellow. 2020 Grammy nominee, Best Music Video category. That's the toppest thing you can achieve in your field. 2020 SF Film Westridge Grant recipient. That's free money because people thought you were good at your job. Wow. 2019 IFP recipient. I don't know what that means, but that sounds fancy. 2019 K Period Meetup Fellowship Grant recipient.
Okay. I'm proud of two things. I'm proud of two things. One, I'm proud in 2012, someone gave me the advice to take everything off my reel that I had done before up to that point and only put one project. And that was really scary. You know, only being 4 or 5 years into my career, the idea of scrapping everything that I had on my reel was terrifying. But I'm proud of myself for doing it. Because by doing it, I was able to completely reinvent myself. And it's the reason why Bjork reached out to me. So I'm proud of, I'm just proud of like maybe having the courage to just totally cut the cord on what I was doing previously and start over.
Right.
The second thing I'm proud of is I am proud of doing the film labs, because I think there is a lot of, it just took a lot of ego death to like start over again. I'm proud of myself for maybe having the courage at the time I did to start over again. I think that's the hardest thing as growing artists. We all, you make a piece of work and you put it on your mantle, and even that, putting it on the mantle is like so hard, and you're like, oh, do I deserve this? And you do it, and then when you accumulate your CV or what you've done, the idea of like scrapping it is so terrifying. The idea of like starting over, and I think that I'm just maybe proud of myself for just taking the leap to just be a student again. It was very hard, and I'm just glad I did it because I feel like I've grown the most than I ever have in the past 5 years.
Great.
I love that.
That would be like equivalent if I keep making fun of white people on TikTok and they delete my account. I'm going to be like, my life's work. Who am I even? It's all lost.
I had my TikTok account. I had a lot of success on TikTok, and then they totally like obliterated my account, and I had to start over.
Because you were making fun of white people.
We
know. That's like, Brian, that's like a really good method in the future if people are like not wanting to be proud of themselves. Just very aggressively read a list of their accomplishments. They're like, okay, I'm proud of something. Please stop.
Absolutely. But although I did love that original answer because it's I'm sure your parents they have to be so proud of your work and career thus far, and I love that you acknowledge that it couldn't have happened without your parents' sacrifice, and but also on the other side of things, like that ego death, that's a really fucking hard thing to do, and to completely reinvent yourself. And you know, we have comedians like Jerry Seinfeld who treat it as like this like sacred art, which is why he's been telling the same fucking jokes for the last 40 years and it feels stale. But, you know, I think that's why we're privileged to like see your work thus far, because it's so inventive and it's so genre defying. And I can see how like that process of constantly having to challenge yourself and reinvent yourself must have been so fucking difficult, but we get to benefit from all of it. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, but Andrew, the exciting part for our listeners out there, where can they find you and your work online? And I guess like what projects should they anticipate?
Yeah, I guess my Instagram is my main portal. It's my full name, Andrew Thomas Wang. Huang is my last name. You can also, I don't know, I have a link tree in there with all my other, to all my other stuff. My movie is just the main thing that you can anticipate from me. It will take another 2 years probably till anyone sees it. I do have, I don't know if I can. I do have another music video coming soon. Maybe, well, not soon. Like it's nearly done, but it will be a while till it's released. But it will hopefully be released sometime within the next 6 months.
Nice.
And I just directed a TV show episode for
Wow.
It's called Random Acts of Flyness on HBO. The creator is Terrence Nance.
Nice.
So I was just very honored to work with him. I think he's a visionary, and so that will be out eventually. I'm not sure exactly when, sometime end of this year or next year. I don't know. I would love to do more music videos, so hopefully that'll be in the works in the near future.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so
we want to see more music videos from you too.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be working on it.
Love that. And what about you, Youngmi?
Oh, you can find me on social media at YM Mayer or TikTok, Youngmi Mayer. How about you, Brian?
You guys can find me on socials at It's Brian Park, and follow our podcast at Feeling Asian Podcast. And yeah, if you made it this far, everyone, thank you for listening, and we'll see you all here next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.